Okay, good morning, good afternoon, and hello everybody, and welcome to, this is actually the first live training session that I've delivered. So this session will be recorded, so you can share this internally and externally, whoever you're working with. But I thought it would be really useful for those of you that have recently been welcomed to the Revizto family, and I thought I'd take this opportunity just to refresh some memories for those of you who are familiar with Revizto, and also use this as an introduction to getting started for those who may be new to Revizto. So those in your organization that may be part of the team that are going to be using Revizto moving forward as a coordination and collaboration tool. A quick reminder as to what Revizto is. So if anyone is completely new, Revizto, broadly speaking, is a coordination and collaboration platform. Our focus is on collaborative issue management and about putting a user-friendly platform into the hands of everybody on the project. So we're not isolating, those who aren't from industry, like maybe the client, or just focusing in on our BIM experts or Revit gurus, or people who are familiar with technology. Revizto allows you to involve the whole project team to comment and collaborate and communicate. So I'll show you some of the other things that the slide says as we get into the presentation. But you've all seen this presentation before, so good news is I'm not going to run through that again today. Right, so starting right at the beginning, what will happen is, well, actually, to start right at the beginning, you will have been sent an email which will give you links to our online e-learning video tutorials, which are cut down versions of what we're going to run through today. So I'll send an email out afterwards with the links to our online user tutorials, so you can find exactly what it is you want to know to do. So maybe it's the measuring tool. So your colleagues can click on this link, and if I do that now, that will take me to that video, which will just scroll through that focuses on that particular feature. On our website as well, there's a whole heap of information, so you can either contact us directly, or under the support section, there's our manual, and in there as well, you can get into quite a lot of detail. So first of all, you will have been invited to a project or somebody's license. So you will have received an email that looks a little something like this, so you'll need to create an account. Once you've done that, you can go back in to the website. Through all of this is listed here for you to see after this presentation, but depending on what you want to do, you've got two versions of Revizto. We've got Revizto for the plugins. So if you're going to be a content creator, shall we say, and exporting your Revit model to Revizto, you're going to need the plugin. If you just want to view that Revizto project on a tablet, on your PC, Mac, or even in VR, then you just need Revizto 4. So make sure that you download the right version. That sometimes can confuse people, so just confirm that you have the right version installed. So once you've done that, let's just go back a screen here. You'll have installed Revizto, and if I look at my desktop, it's quite busy. We've got Revizto installed here, the new shared location iPad connector, and some other bits and pieces as well. So I've got the full version. We've got our export scheduler there, the Vive, and the Oculus viewer as well. So I'm just going to fire up Revizto first of all. So what you'll see is our standard example project here, which is this. And hopefully you've been invited to a project by one of your colleagues. For me, that is this law office, which we're going to look at today. If not, then you will need to create a Revizto project. So why don't we start with that first of all? So here I have a Revit model. I'm just going to jump back to the slide as well to explain that you can export data from a range of different places, but I look at this Revit example today, but you could export a model from other tools you can see on the screen here. Or if you have an IFC or an FBX file, the process is a little different. You can create a new project directly here, and then inside that project, if I open up this project now, I can import an IFC or an FBX file that way. But for this particular example, we're going to take this Revit model and export that to Revizto. Now what it does when we do that, so let's just look at the export option. So I should have installed the plugin. There are a couple of buttons, and the first thing I want to do is export this project to Revizto. So I get a few options. So I'm just going to leave everything run for now. And you can see there, I've also got the option to export the sheets. So I'm going to select that to see what is available. And these tick boxes, as you've probably guessed, I can untick or deselect to select what it is I want to take through. And this process during the export has become much quicker in the new release. So you can select this button at the bottom to see that working in action. Something else we've included now is we've supported a range of different coordinate systems, which is something we've been asked for. So you now get to choose which coordinate system you want to work in. So I won't click export because I've done this previously. One other thing I'll mention is this is a container Revit file. So in here, I have my structural and MEP modeling. So Revizto is actually going to take all of that through as well. So we'll click export. I've done that one previously. Whilst we're on the topic of exporting, it makes sense to show you our export scheduler as well, which is really useful. So same options, but at the bottom here, I've got the option to automate this process. And what I mean by that is, for my example, I've selected Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 8 p.m. So that export will run at that time on each day. So I don't need to be at my desktop. As long as my machine is logged on, I don't need the Revit model open or Revit itself. That export will happen automatically. So that just automates the process, and then everyone in the project will get the most up-to-date information. Okay, so that's the process of getting the model into Revizto, and that may be the first stepping stone for some of you, and I'd recommend this is probably the best starting point if you want to invite your colleagues in to start using Revizto. Let's create the project here, and then so we can see that this model is now here in Revizto. I'll come on to the preferences and tools in a second. The first thing I want to do is click share, and in here I can then invite whoever I want to collaborate with me in this project. So I can paste in somebody's email address, and then I can also set up certain access levels. So if this is, let's say, a project that you're collaborating with external parties, then you may want to set up access levels. So we can create a new access level here where I want to switch certain things on and off. Now, one thing I may not want people to be able to do is to close out an issue. So I'm going to leave that one unticked. So what that means is that anyone in the project can change the status of an issue from open to in progress or solved, but they couldn't close the issue out. That's down to the project manager, and perhaps I don't want them to be able to delete an issue either, and so on and so forth. And I can give this a name here. Maybe we'll call it architect, for example. Save as new level, and then it'll tell me it's created, and I can use that access level then to invite whoever it is I want to invite. So Armin, you just saw pop up one of my colleagues on the screen there. I pasted in his email address with those permissions, and then I click invite. So there you go. He's already part of this project, but his permission level has changed. In here, I can also see everyone who's part of that project. And for me as the project owner, at any time, I can go in here and remove somebody from that project. Something else worth mentioning here is I've got a license pool. So if I invite somebody that isn't a Revizto paying customer, I'll actually invite them to borrow effectively one of my licenses for a period of time. And that's it. Okay, so that's how we set up a project and how we invite people in. And here you can paste a whole load of email addresses if you want to. So that's how we create a project and invite our colleague. So your colleague or whoever it is you invite will then get a link to say they've been invited here to the project. So when they open up Revizto, that project will be available for them there to open and take a look around. On this, if it's the first time they've opened the Revizto project and they have content that they're going to be editing as well, in their Revit model, what they'll need to do, because they haven't exported that project, is ensure that it's linked. So what you can do is link that project through to the right Revizto project. So what I can do here is either create a new project, link to an existing project. If I just show you how this works, I can then select any project that this Revit model should be linked to. So it's that one, click OK, and then that bidirectional issue link will work, and I'll show you what I mean by that in a second. So that's the hard part, if you like. That's how we get the project set up. We've looked at permissions and how we then invite people to collaborate with us. So let's now take a look around Revizto itself and what we can do. The first thing to consider is preferences, and this is down to the individual user and how their setup looks, their account effectively. So the first thing to check is navigation. So for me, not being a frequent user of Revit, then using the Revit controls is not good for me, but it may be something I want to use. I'm going to use the gaming controls. If I go back here to my user guide, you can actually see here, if I select the gaming controls, there are literally 4 buttons on my keyboard that I'm going to use now to navigate around in Revizto. So you just saw the W, A, S and D keys. If I just hold down the W key, that's now going to move forward, the D right, A left, Z back. So very simple, and that's the gaming controls. And I can use my mouse as well by holding down the right key and just take a look around. So if I use those together, quite quickly and easily, I can start flying through this building. And because I'm in fly mode, then I'm not going to get stopped by an object. I can fly through walls, ceilings, doors, and so on and so forth. This little icon on the bottom left-hand corner, this little person, if I select that, that takes me to walk mode. So that up and down no longer works. I can't go through floors or doors, but I can still take a look around. Now, all of these issues here are visible in the 3D view and the 2D view, all color-coded by their status. Now, depending on what you want to do, maybe we're in a presentation session, so we don't want them to be visible. So you've got a couple of options down the bottom here. So if I just deselect the issue visibility, that's not deleting the issues, it's just removing them from that view. And I can switch them back on as well. So let's just imagine we're giving a presentation for now. And across the top, we've got a range of tools. So if we start at the top left-hand side, a map tool is really useful for larger projects where we tend to hear a lot of people can get themselves lost in other tools like Navisworks if the project hasn't been set up correctly or that person, it's their first time. So what this allows you to do is see exactly where you are in plan in that project and also move from one level to another. So maybe we want to move from that particular level to level 1. So all I need to do then is double click on that drop, pin the blue icon, and that takes me exactly to that position, but on another level. Now that's really useful. Let's say if it's in a pretty tall skyscraper, then moving around like that can be very useful. I'm still in fly mode. Let's just walk around. So as I'm walking around here, maybe we want to check the distance or the width of this particular corridor. So this ruler icon here, I can go in and just drag that around, and this is intelligent enough just to snap the surfaces. And that now works in 2D as well, so we can measure on 2D sheets, and I can get a bit more specific here with the tool, so I can look at minimum distances. So for that to work, I need to double click on 2 separate objects, and that'll give me the minimum distance between them both. Now if I go to a 2D sheet here, switch off the issues here, I just want to show you how you can measure up in 2D as well, as we're on the topic of measuring. So I just select new, and I can drag this ruler around. So we'll put it against that wall and this wall, and I can create multiple measurements here as well. So I can go in and measure up there as well. So this is a brand new feature in the latest version. So make sure you update to be able to do that. On that, if you want to check if you're on the latest version, if you click on the Revizto icon on the left-hand side there, you can select check for updates. Good news, I'm running the latest version of Revizto. Perfect. So we'll go back into 3D and look at this the scissor icon here, which is a sectioning tool. So if I select that, I can then either move this around, or I come back out and go home, or drag this up. I can again move that around and cut a new one, or double click on the surface that I want to cut through and start moving that, and that'll start cutting that section plane. So this works on all of the devices that I have Revizto installed. So I may be doing this on a tablet, for example. So I can cut section boxes, section planes. If I select box, zoom out a little bit, and then I can start cutting the section box. And I've got a couple of options here as well where I can start playing around with that and moving that section box around accordingly. So maybe now this is a view that we want to save. So if I come here to viewpoints, all of these viewpoints have come through as part of that export, but let's just create a new viewpoint here by clicking that plus icon, and we can give it a name. So I'll just call it training example. And now anyone in the project would be able to see that viewpoint. So if I scroll through here, you can see I've actually got other viewpoints as well that have been saved and created by other people in the project. So this one here is interesting because that moves me on to my next point. Because this information that's come through is rich, it's a model that's full of information. And what I mean by that is if I select one of these objects, all of the relevant object information has come through from that export from Revit. So I can do things like this. So I click on that cube icon, a list appears on the left-hand side here. And then I can filter by objects, levels, links. So if I look at objects, I can switch everything off effectively, and I maybe only want to look at the ceilings. And I can also here choose to color code those as well. So it'll make those red, and maybe now we want to bring in all of the duct fittings, and I want to color code those green, and so on. And if we go back to links here, I can also bring in the structural model, and maybe I want to color code that blue. That's hidden here in the object view. So we'll switch them on there, and that color has been brought through automatically. So you can get into as much detail as you want, and you can also, I don't know, maybe you want to make those transparent. And then we can create a new viewpoint there, so somebody doesn't have to go through that process of setting that view up. It's already there for them. Now I've created another viewpoint, which is home. So if I click on that little house button there, that takes me to this home viewpoint. One thing I haven't mentioned is you can navigate around by room as well. So if I click on that door icon, if the rooms have been brought through from Revit, then I can just select on that room, and that will take me to the center of that particular room. And if I double click on that room icon, it'll also give me all of the details and parameters around that particular room. So that's how we move around, and some of the tools that we've got available here in the 3D view. We can also create video directly here in Revizto. So if I click on that red icon and start moving around, and then click stop, that then stores that video in the project, and it's available there, or I can export this out, as you can see there, as an MOV or an AVI. I can also set up a camera share session. So on the right-hand side, if any of my colleagues are online, they'll be listed here, and I can invite them into the project if you like. So what they'll be able to do then is see on their screen, wherever they are, exactly where I am in my project in real time. So this is really useful for review sessions with maybe colleagues who aren't in the same office. So you don't get any of this lag that's typically sort of seen when you're using GoToMeeting and other tools as well. See a couple of questions coming through, so please do keep them coming. I'll get to those towards the end of the session, which will probably be another 5 or 10 minutes. So that was 3D. If I click on 2D, then I'll be able to see all of the 2D sheets here. So they've all been listed with the number of issues, live issues on them. So if I click on open there, now you remember I switched the issue visibility off. I can switch them back on. And now in the latest version, which I've just installed, we've actually got this clustering of issues. So you can see that if I click on this 4 icon there, there are actually 4 issues related to that particular area. So I've created 4 issues in one place. So that can be really, really useful actually. Let's just come back out again and deselect those 4. Now what this has given me is a good overall picture of how many issues there are on that sheet, and they're color coded based by their status. So as I zoom in, I can see where the issues are and the status. So green refers to solved, orange is in progress, and red is open. And the little icons here refer to whether that issue was created in 2D, in 3D, or if it was a clash that was brought in from via BCF or Navisworks. These sheets are intelligent as well, so I can do a couple of things here. Now, Revizto really does help bridge the gap between 2D and 3D. So maybe we're in a presentation with somebody outside of industry, and they want to understand how this mechanical room is going to look in the 3D world. So if I click on Jump to 3D here, I can double click anywhere. So let's double click in that room, and that takes me straight into that room, into the 3D view, which is really, really useful. Or a step further than that, if I switch off these issues a minute, all of these sheets have come through from Revit and been given these green icons automatically. So if I just click on that, it's now going to automatically overlay that 2D sheet in the 3D model. So there's another button at the top here where that sheet can be attached to that cut in plane or stick in place. So if I just click it, you'll notice I can now, so I've stuck that sheet in place effectively, and I can drag the 3D geometry through the 2D sheet. Now this is useful in lots of different ways: communication, additional coordination checks, and so on and so forth. I'm just going to jump back to this 2D sheet quickly and click on one of the sections. You can see these green icons have appeared, and I can do exactly the same thing here. So maybe we want to check a particular detail that doesn't look as it should on the 2D sheet where it does in the 3D model. So that's something that's been done automatically for me. Now what I get asked a lot is, and this relates to one of the questions that's come through, is about other consultants importing their data. So what you can do is invite other consultants into the model here and give them certain access so they can edit content, i.e. upload their own Revit model. So they can upload their own content if you want them to, or you can federate the model yourself, or link them into a Revit model, or federate them in Navisworks and then export it from Navisworks into Revizto. There's a couple of options. You just need to choose how you want to control that. Just open up this question log. So I can see that as well. But let's say it's additional 2D documentation. So I can also add additional 2D documentation here as well, just by clicking import, and you can see the file types that we support there. You can also set up that 3D overlay manually. So if I open up a sheet, you can see I've got this set up 3D overlay, so I can position, maybe it's a detail down here. That, click done, and then cut the model appropriately. Maybe it's, again, another detail here, and then I can position that particular drawing or detail in place. So I do that once, click done, and then that's available on that sheet for everybody else. But bad example, but just to show you that it can be done. Okay, so that's quite an in-depth overview of the tools available in Revizto in terms of 2D and 3D navigation, taking measurements, cutting sections, viewpoints, rooms, and so on and so forth. Now, the core element is our issue tracker, or the single source of truth, as I like to refer to this as. So what this is doing is allowing the project team to create and manage issues via the issue tracker. So everything is stored, logged, and tracked in one place. So for the whole project now, we can see all issues. And again, I say all of them, depending on permissions, you can restrict that and make issues public if you want, so that only your colleagues internally can see them if this project is indeed being used for the project as a coordination tool. And I've also got this filter tool here. So what you'll notice is these icons, you need to select them for that particular view to expand out. So I've got the filter tool, the messaging, and the information here. We can just hide that in or out by using that minimize and maximize icon there. So what a lot of you are probably doing is running coordination sessions, or perhaps running a clash report in tools like Celebri or Navisworks. So we support them both. So if you run a clash report in Celebri, you can actually import that BCF file directly here into the issue tracker. Or if you're using Navisworks, we support Navisworks directly. I will open up a Navisworks model now, perhaps I'll do that in a bit. But there's another button here that says export clashes. You link that to the relevant project, and you can actually group the clashes as well. So I've got some examples here. So using the filter tool, let's restrict that view down to issues that are by type, and we'll just look at clash to show you some examples that I've brought in. So as I can scroll down this list, I can see the ID number, who it's assigned to, and one of these clashes actually was previously 27 individual clashes, but they've been grouped here and translated into one individual issue. And that's been assigned to a certain person. It's in progress with a priority, a deadline, and so on and so forth. And I'll show you how you create those directly in Revizto in a second. So if we look at another issue here that's been assigned to me, now on the left-hand side, I can see the original markup, if you like, or the image that's coming from Navisworks. If I select 3D, it shows me where it is in my 3D Revizto project. And again, there are some tools here where I can change the view of that. And on the top, there's the 2D icon. So if I click on that 2D icon, it'll show me where that issue appears on a 2D sheet. And if I click on 2D again, it'll show me all of the 2D sheets that issue affects. Now, one of the big benefits of Revizto is what tends to happen is somebody will get a report either as a BCF file or PDF, and will then need to filter through that to work out which issue they need to solve and where this issue is in their Revit model. Now, what's happened in the background there is Revizto is intelligently linked back to my Revit model. So when I double click on this issue, that takes me exactly to where that issue is in my Revit model. And that's a little bit underestimated. When I sit down with project teams and just think amongst yourselves, or to yourselves rather, we're not all in the same room, how much time that takes if you're going through the process of looking at a PDF file with 400 clashes, and that's a list of all clashes from that exercise that was run. There's only 10 that relate to us. Where are these now in our Revit models or AutoCAD models or ArchiCAD models? And the same process for the BCF, then you need to navigate through your Revit model, work out where this minute clash is, fix it, and then respond. All of that's done here directly in Revizto's issue tracker. So I've been assigned that issue in real time, and then we can start chatting away here in the chat box. So I just wanted to show you that you can import your clashes directly from Navisworks or Celebri. So at the top here, we've got this reset filter icons that I tend to use quite a lot because I use this demo project a lot. So there's quite a lot of issues in here, 300 and something. So ignore the number. I'm in these type of sessions day in, day out, so creating lots of different types of issues. Another question that had come through then, but it looks like I'd already answered that. Great. So let's create an issue. So right now, how are you creating issues that aren't clash related? So I'm just going to, let's pick on this this door, for example. So I was in a presentation at UE yesterday, and somebody mentioned that part of them their process is something doesn't quite look right and it needs to be changed. So they will typically take a screenshot from Revit or create a viewpoint in Navisworks and then send somebody an email, or perhaps if it's in the same company, send them a message via Skype, or lots of different ways of communication. And that gets lost in the noise, so they're having to keep an Excel spreadsheet and all of that sort of stuff. So it's quite difficult to work out who's been sent what, if it's been done, and so on and so forth. So let's just imagine that there's an issue with this door. It's too close to the other door, and we want to move it over a little bit, right? So feel free again in the chat log to throw some examples. So at the top here, we didn't look at this earlier on, is this new issue icon. Now this appears in 3D, in 2D, and also if I open my Revit model, I've also got that new issue here. So for all the tools where there's a plugin, we can create the new issue anywhere, but it's storing it centrally. So let's just go back to this door and I'll show you a couple of ways of doing this. So I've clicked that. It's presenting me now with this blue marker, which I can move around. Or I can just double click on that door and it's stuck, if you like, to that element. Now we've actually got a markup tool here directly in Revizto. So on the left-hand side, you can get as creative as you want. So I'm just going to keep it pretty simple and mark up that door. I can change the colors of and the type as well, you know, how that markup is going to look. And maybe I want that to be yellow as well. So you have a play around and work out what's best for you. And let's just say we want to move that over here. And I don't know, we can maybe draw that up as well. So you can see I can change all of this should I want to. As you've probably guessed, I'm not an architect by trade, but you know, I'll do my best here to demonstrate what it is I'm trying to do. There we go. So that's my little door, and I can add some text here to say move door please. I'll be polite and click done. And I can change the color of the text as well. Let's make it white, shall we? And there we go. So there's my markup. So I can get as creative as I want to, and it's simple to use, and it saves you having to open up another markup tool. It's all under one roof, so to speak. I'm sure that's pinching somebody's old slogan, but we'll go with it for now. And we'll give the issue a name here at the top. So we'll call it door issue and then click done. I'm purposely taking my time here, and I'll run through a couple of other examples much quicker. So that now has been logged in the issue tracker. So what I want to do now is action this. So on the right-hand side here, I've got essentially a couple of tick boxes. So you can see for yourself what they are. So I want to assign this to the architect in this project, who's Michael. So Michael's based in Sweden. He has Revizto open. He'll get notified by his desktop or iPad pinging instantly. So I don't have to send him an email. But he'll also get sent an email as a backup as well. And you probably want to fine tune that because that could drive you crazy. So I'll show you that as I've mentioned it. So back under the workspace, you'll have, once you've logged in, a little icon here. So if you click on the icon, you can change a few things here. So profile settings, notifications. So under notifications, you can switch these per project. There's a lot I'm involved in, or globally. So what I have is I get sent an email once a day with any event that I've clicked at the bottom here. So effectively, I get a report from every project once a day with all of the issues that involve me, and that's it, as opposed to getting an email every time something changes. So, I'm sure you'll have different ways or preferences, whether you want that to come through all the time or infrequently, you decide. But the whole idea is, I don't really look at those emails because I'm using Revizto to check what's going on. So we've assigned it to Michael. Ping, he gets pinged in Sweden. I've also got some other information here that I can assign. So you can give the issues priority or not. So we can either click none, or we can say it's a major priority. I can also assign a deadline to it here, so I can choose when that may be. So maybe it's before we meet in our next team meeting. And there's some other fields here, so I can make issues public or not if I want to. So depending on permissions, if you can see public issues, then they'll be there, and so on and so forth. I can add watchers to this issue, so maybe this affects a few people in this project. And as I'm changing anything, you can see this keeps an activity log, which can't be removed. I can also tag the issue as well. So these are some preset tags that I've created that the rest of the project team can use, but they can't edit or add unless I give them permissions to. So I'll go in and filter that as door. So what I can do is then go in and filter by all of these fields. If I filter by not type, by tag, door, there are now 33 issues that have been tagged door. And from here, I can export all of these issues out by clicking that button. There's an Excel spreadsheet, VCF, PDF. There are lots of different ways. So I'll just reset that and come back up to the issue we just created. And what happens is Michael gets that notification in Revizto. He double clicks on this notification. He's linked his local Revit model to Revizto. That takes him exactly to where that door is. So we can go in here then and edit that door accordingly. I won't try and do that because I can't use Revit. So we can then, in the issue itself, rather than sending emails back and forth, we can start chatting away here to say, please move door across as noted. And then he can start chatting away back to me, again, all in real time. So we haven't had to send emails back and forth. We can attach lots of different types of documentation, so PDF, CSV files, the whole range. So maybe, I want to put in that and say, refer to this drawing. And as we've started now communicating, makes sense to update the status to say, well, this is in progress. And earlier on, I mentioned about closed issues. So I can mark the issue of as closed as the project or the information manager. Michael can only change it up to solved. So for me then, let's look at the filter again. I can filter by not type again. Where is it? By status. So I can look at, let's just clear that, issues that have been marked as solved. So maybe my role is to go through the issues that have been marked solved and double check that they are actually solved. So let's imagine this issue is, when was it created? December the 5th, it's been marked as solved. So Revizto keeps a copy of all of the revisions as well. And I can jump back to a previous revision. So I can see since December, there's been a new version of the geometry updated. So if I go back to the issue tracker, if I click on 3D, that will show me the most up-to-date information. So I can see now that door has been updated as I've requested. So I can go in and mark that issue out as closed. And then that removes it from the list, and that blue icon has been removed from the view as well, which is great. But if I look at closed issues, then it reappears. So it doesn't delete it, it just removes it from that view. Let's go back at the top. So we've created an issue in 3D and shown how the process of going through that and assigning it to somebody, how it's then intelligently linked back to our Revit model. Now let's create an issue in 2D. So same process here. I just click on the blue icon. Maybe this time, we're taking a measurement between here and here. And that doesn't comply to code, for example. It needs to be 1.5 meters. So I do a new measurement. We want to create a new issue around that. So I can position that marker. And then again, I'll just mark this up and add some text there to say, please ensure this meets code of 1.5 meters. Okay, and that's there. And maybe we want to put and give it a name and click done. And then that gets logged in the issue tracker. So I'm going to assign this to Dexter in this case. This is a pretty critical issue and it needs to be solved pretty soon, and so on and so forth. So that's been logged and tracked, and that was a little bit quicker. Dexter then receives that issue double clicks on it, and that, you can see, has taken him directly to where that issue is on the relevant 2D sheet in his Revit model. So very simple and intuitive, and just does what you almost think or expect you want the software to do. So we've created a range of issues here. So we've created, looked at issues we've imported from Navisworks. We've created an issue in Revizto in a 3D view, and then gone through the process of what we can do here using the chat log to communicate with that relevant person, and how we then close out that process. Created an issue here in 2D as well. But why don't we go in and create an issue here in Revit? So let's imagine there's something wrong with this door. So in Revit, under the plugin, I've got this new issue icon. So it's the same process. I go in and I position my marker, and it won't be, just say move door again, or duct, or whatever it is. Text is no good white in this particular instance, and we'll give it a name and click done. And what you'll see is, even though that issue was created in Revit, it's stored in the issue tracker in our single source of truth, along with everything else. And on the left-hand side, if I click on 3D, it's on that door. So everything's intelligently connected, and it just works. Now, the issue tracker, because of all of this information I showed you, can filter in lots of different ways. We can generate reports from here as well. So to do that, this report icon at the top, or more like an email icon, if I click on that, that again takes me to my workspace, directly to that reporting area for this project. So to create a report is really simple. So I'm going to click on Create New Report. And give it a name. And then again, at the bottom, I've got all of the fields that are in the issue tracker, so I can filter by priority, tag, assignee, report. So let's say we want to look at all of the issues that have been tagged door. And for the previous week, with a priority that is, we won't bother about the priority or assignee, but you can get into as much detail as you want to. So that's now generated a report of 30 issues. And this color coding scheme is brought across from the issue tracker itself. So you can see these colors, what we discussed earlier on, red, orange, and green are all here as well. And at the bottom, so if I select one of these, that will show me all of those issues listed on the right-hand side, who they're assigned to, the ID number, and so on and so forth. And what you've got here is a little bubble that will show you if any issues have missed their deadline. Good news here, none have missed their deadline, but if I scroll down to a previous report, that one actually had one that had missed its deadline. So from here, I can then generate a report as a PDF or a chart. I like to make the images nice and big, and then I can select the email address of anybody in that project with me. So we'll send an email to myself now, so you can see that working. Or I can set up a regular delivery, a bit like the export scheduler, where you select who you want to receive the report. You've already created that type of report. So this one relates to doors in the last week. It may be a report that refers to all issues that have been assigned to one of your colleagues internally that's been assigned an issue that's missed its deadline. And you can set up this schedule then to run every Friday at 1 o'clock, and then everybody receives an email in that list with an email to download that report. So in a second, I will have got an email. So here we go. There's my email to download that report, either as Excel, PDF. So if I just click on this PDF link, here's my issue report for all of those issues. So you can see it's detailed them all. I can see who they're assigned to, and all of the markups in 2D, 3D, and so on and so forth. One thing I haven't mentioned is, if you are, I don't know if there's any contractors on this particular call, but if you have Revizto installed on your tablet and you're out on site, so maybe you can use it as a snagging tool as well, or maybe there's a defect with part of the construction, you can actually go in and take a picture with your tablet, and that will get loaded here in the issue tracker as well. So I can actually see wrong button. So that one actually allows you to multiple edit issues. So I can go in here and maybe I want to push maybe I've filtered the list by all issues that have been assigned to Arup, and because we're in a review meeting with them as we speak, and we want to push those issues out a couple of weeks. And all those four have been updated. Attachments here, sorry that most of the pictures are of me, but you'll be able to see here that, out on site or in conferences, we've been taking images and capturing those. As a good example, that's one of the doors that have been recently fitted out on site that have been incorrectly fitted, and that gets logged in the issue tracker and will then appear in that report. One thing that we've just introduced is our dashboard. So on my PowerPoint here, somewhere, I've got an example of this. Here we go. So that now you'll be able to create a dashboard per project, which takes a couple of seconds to set up, but it really is interesting because it gives you a holistic view, more or less instantly, in terms of how that project is performing. So how many issues are there? How many issues are outstanding? How many issues have missed their deadline? You can filter them by discipline, by company, and so on and so forth, and get these all sorts of various KPI reports for that project itself. So that's something that's coming in the next couple of weeks, which I wanted to share with you today. And I believe that's probably as much as I wanted to show, because I'm running up close to our hour. So we've got 10 minutes to go. So I can see there's some more questions that have come through. So please now ask whatever you want. And if I haven't made myself clear, then let me know now. But in the chat log again, if I come back, I could see a few people jumped in a little later, you'll be able to ask questions away in the chat log. So if you can just stick your questions in there, I'll do my best to answer. So let's have a quick look. So somebody's asked, can you change graphics to make the model smoother on navigation in terms of large-scale projects? So yes, you can. So under preferences here, I can show you everything, but there are a couple of options. So you've got general, where you can change language, units and default screens, navigation, which we looked at. One thing you can do here as well is to turn up the sensitivity of your control. So if it's an infrastructure project with 50 miles of road, then you'll want these tuned right up. And then graphics, so you can change the graphics. So if it's a very, very large model with a lot going on, and your machine doesn't have a fantastic graphics card, you can switch your graphics mode from box standard, like I had, to fantastic. So you can see that looks a lot better. Or if it's a very large model, then I can turn it right down so that my machine with limited power, I can still see everything, but it just doesn't look as good visually. And there are some other features here I can turn on and off if I'm struggling with graphics card. But yeah, that's how you do that. So when a structural file and an architectural file are linked in, do the 2D sheets from both files come in, and are they separated for navigation? Yes, so that Revit model I exported had all of the structural and the MEP model information linked. So if I click on 2D, we can scroll through here, and let's take a look. If I type in just scroll down. There's all of the structural and MEP drawings are here as well. So I can take in, double click and look on that one as you'd expect. Let's just turn these off for a second. There's one of my structural sheets. So yes is a short answer. And you can also here create folders of your own. So maybe we want to create a new folder called structural, and you can drag and drop all of the 2D structural details and sheets into that particular folder. Let's just delete that one for now. Perfect. Keep the questions coming through. So answered that one. Change the graphics, yes. When an issue is raised in a structural model, will it link to only the structural model, or will it also raise with the architectural model? So I think I understand that question. This Revit model, I've got the structural and the architectural model all in one place in this container file. So if that's the case, I go back to one of these issues, and if we filter by, I don't know, structure, there's an issue here. So I've got the structural and the architectural model all linked in. So I can switch off some of these views if I wanted to. So if I wanted to go in here and only look at the structural model, then I could filter by link, switch everything off, and just look at the structural model. And there's that issue. And then maybe we want to color code that, I don't know, blue. And maybe we want to bring in the architectural model as well, just to understand that in a bit more detail. Maybe make that transparent so we can see that. But what then happens is if I double click on that issue, that would take me to the relevant place then in my Revit model. So if that Revit model has a structural model linked, then yes, it would show them both together. If it doesn't, if I come back to this diagram actually, perhaps you're the structural engineer, so you've exported your structural information here to the Revizto project, and the architects also brought in their architectural model separately. You'd be able to see where those are clashing in Revizto, and then when you double click on that issue, it would only show you that structural beam in your local structural model because you don't have the Revit architectural model linked. Hopefully that answers your question. Okay, perfect. Any other questions? So I'll take another one or two once we've got you all on the line. And there's that switch back into my local Revit model where I've got the architectural and the structural model linked. Just reading through some of these questions. So one more thing is if anybody does have any additional questions that I haven't answered or you didn't want to ask today, then you've all got my details hopefully. So feel free to send me an email. If there are any technical issues, the best thing to do is to send an email to our support team, which is service@revizto.com, and copy myself. And we'll do our very best to answer you. It's usually within a very short amount of time, a couple of hours, the team will have probably responded to your question and given you some suggestions. Apart from that, thank you for logging in today. And if there are any suggestions about how we can improve these sessions, or if you'd like to see anything else in the next training session, then feel free to let me know directly. Again, thank you for your time, appreciate it, and I really look forward to hearing your feedback from your continued use of Revizto. So I'll wrap the session up there. We've come in just shy of the hour, which is great. I know you're all busy people, so thank you very much, and I look forward to speaking and seeing you all at some point soon. Take care. Thank you.